wanted the name of the church to speak powerfully of what God was really like, both to Christians and to non-Christians, people who aren't Christians yet. And Corby was a town which, after the steelworks closed down, experienced a lot of hopelessness. And when I was growing up, I could have probably summed up the mood of the town like that. Not so much these days. But we wanted the name of the church to speak about the heart of God into some of the situations that we were seeing. And so Hope Church really was hope was the antidote to some of the things that we were seeing in the town. And so we wanted people to know that that's the kind of God that we serve, a God who brings hope.
And what began to emerge at that point was the crystallization that we were going to plant a church and it would be under the umbrella of Elim.
We then were talking about when we were going to launch this church publicly, but we did lots of random things to start with. I remember this September, I think we helped do a service at Great Oakley. The first ever Sunday we met together, and we'd prayed as a family. Sometimes we'd had church at home with our kids during that year, and one of our eldest son had said, I think I can see us all meeting together on a Sunday morning in our house and people praising God. And I thought, well, that isn't going to happen. It's not going to start at our house. But I think the first Sunday we ever met was our house. And then I think we had a bouncy castle on Sheila and David's lawn sometime, and blessed their little street. And then we met at the Hope Centre, which, well, it's now the Hope Centre. It wasn't then. It was just the factory unit that we met to pray in, and we were able to use that. And then this thing had begun to grow. More people all these people that we met throughout the year began to be part of that group.
We kind of basically agreed that we wanted to kind of meet together and plant a church together. And so it was starting to flesh out the idea of what it would look like. And we'd all got very different backgrounds. So it was very interesting to throw it all into the pot and see what came out. There was nothing there where we were like, this is what it's got to be like. It's just like, what does God want to do? Where do we feel he's leading? And then ultimately that led to what we'd call Oakley Vale, our first open meetings. And it just flowed. I wouldn't say that necessarily, maybe it was, but for me, it wasn't necessarily loads of structure. It was just, let's see what God's doing and do it. And we're not going to try to force something to happen that isn't just because that's what church should be. It's just, what does God want church to be?
We planned to launch in November in 2008. And there was like this palpable excitement of what was going to happen. And we decided we were going to meet at Oakley Vale Primary School.
I wonder if a few people recognise this building. I remember making the journey up this path every Sunday for a few years. Let's see if we can get inside. This is Oakley Vale Primary School. This is where my kids came to school. It's also the venue of our very first Hope Church gathering back on the 16th of November 2008. We spent our first few years as a church gathering in this building. I remember preaching from the front over there. We had some of the musicians gathered there too, and the refreshments team would serve teas and coffees from the back over there. And when we sat, we didn't have proper grown-up chairs like in other schools. We had these benches. Do you remember these? And we used to sit on these throughout the service. We didn't care because it really felt like God was in this place. 4 people from Hope Church were governors of this school at one time. And we used to use a little community room just down the corridor as a community outreach place where we ran something we called the Coffee Stop. There's really happy memories associated with this place.
And that first Sunday, do you remember that first Sunday?
I remember the donuts.
It was great, wasn't it? That first Sunday, and just all these people turned up, and we didn't know where they'd come from, but we were all sitting on benches.
There were giant bean bags for the kids to sit on, and we were serving toast and coffee and tea before the service, and the kids were going around with plates of toast, and we had like donuts and all sorts of nice pastry things, and we just pulled out all the stops, didn't we? And we wanted to be the friendliest church anyone had ever visited, and we wanted to do the welcomes thing really well. And I remember standing there preaching this message with probably 100 people in the room, most of whom I'd never met before. I just didn't know where they'd come from. It was like, this doesn't happen in the UK, that you start a church and this many people come. But there they were. And I remember thinking, wow, this is the fulfillment of the vision that God gave me all of those years ago. I'm standing in the moment that I've dreamt of for all of these years. This is actually happening. And I went home that day and I remember feeling, now what, God?